This is Len May, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I've never done a welcome thing on the show before, so it's kind of fun.
I think it should be your new thing that you should be doing.
You know what? It might be. It might be. I also like to take anyone's hand, male or female, because we're all equal, and then and go to do the enchanté. But I go like this. I go, and I kiss my own hand, and it always gets a good laugh, But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, enchanté, and all of those things.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I get to talk to super cool people who do super cool shit. You are definitely going to be among these guys. Man, when you go to a party, what is it that you see that you do?
So I run a company that does precision health and wellness using DNA. So that's really what I do a million different things because I was introduced as an autodidactic polymath at one time, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. So I had to go research it, and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. But right now, my main business, I guess, where I generate my income from is my company EndoDNA. That's the main thing.
Right. But I ask because you have done a lot of things. You do a lot of things. You're probably quite often the most interesting person in the room when you go somewhere, because you've got all of this stuff that you can talk about, and none of it is like in the what I would call like the we all talk about these things kind of category. You're always going to be interesting wherever you go, whatever you talk about.
You know what? I think it's using my ADHD or ADD as a superpower. It's leaning into your curiosity. And I think that's what really makes people unique with ADD, because you're told that you have a disorder. Something is wrong with you. And I never really thought about it. I always thought like, what do you mean? Don't you do three things at once? Don't you read two books at the same time because you get bored of one, you have to move to the other? And people don't do that. And I'm like, well, just accept it and lean into it. And you can make it your strength and your superpower. So every single time I'm interested in something, it's sort of like investing in yourself and investing in your personal discovery where you don't know where it's going to take you. So what the hell I was a commercial real estate broker, and I had a music company, and I do genetics. How do they all involve? And I went to physical therapy school. There's no connection. But there is a connection between everything you do, because they're all learned experiences you store. And when you need them, you can draw on them. So that's, I think, what makes you an interesting person that's well-rounded, just leading into what you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, all that resonates with me. This show here specifically, like I'm always told you have to have a niche. I'm like, well, my niche is life. So get on in, and if you want to opt in, you can. But the world's too big and interesting to just stay inside one thing for me, right? Other folks, great, like niche up. But yeah, it's a challenge. One thing I think about too when it comes to disorder, or is it a misorder? Where like that order can actually be turned into something. I guess it's like manageable versus not manageable. Maybe. What are your thoughts on that? Like when you look at, and I'm not trying to say like post-traumatic growth. That's great, except for that ain't working for me, right? Like I've got a bigger problem. So what are your thoughts on misorder versus disorder?
I think it's a misunderstanding of what ADHD really is. So we're born with the depletion of dopamine, and what happens is we're always looking for that next squirt of dopamine, and you can get it from playing video games. Video game designers do this all day long. And they're like, oh, if we can get kids to just sit there for 8 hours a night and then play on Twitch or whatever, great. But how productive is that for the person that's doing that? So if you're able to create systems for yourself that allow you to use your ADD as that advantage instead of a disadvantage, now you have that advantage over other people, and you can channel your ADD into something that's more productive, or you can hyper focus more effectively on things that are stimulating dopamine. So I'll give you a couple examples. So like I like to paint. So I would paint in the studio with oil, and I would paint for 5-6 hours and not realizing that I'm stuck in 5-6 hours because I'm getting dopamine. It's so exciting, so interesting to me. I'm doing it. When the guy's tapping my shoulder said, we're closing the studio. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, you've been here for 5 hours, that kind of thing. So that's something that's different, and that's something that I can channel and hyper focus more effectively. But the flip side of that, when somebody told me, "Hey, I like your work. I want to commission you to paint," uh, I painted my sneakers, like not my actual sneakers, a painting of my sneakers. So I painted my shoes. The guy's like, "I want you to paint these Nikes and this and that." Now it becomes work. It's no longer fun. Now I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that because I'm not interested. It's not giving me the dopamine hit. And if I have 10 things on my list to do, and it looks like there's a million things on my list, I can't get through that. It's overwhelming. So
Yeah.
I need to create systems, or even as simple as this. My ex-wife used to say, "Why do you eat the same thing for lunch every day?" I'm like, because when I open up the fridge and I have to start making decisions, so I'm spending 10 minutes trying to decide what to eat. Now I can save myself 10 minutes. Steve Jobs wore the same clothes every day because he didn't want to think about it, kind of thing.
Right.
So something similar to that.
Yeah, I get that. And I call a lot of this stuff, it's easy to tell, look, we both have shows. I can have people, very qualified people and unqualified people, tell me what I need to do to make my show better. Everybody wants me to have, like more success. And then I've had a lot of success, but they tell me what I need to do without ever understanding what it takes to do this stuff and how much work it already takes. And so there's a thing called the infrastructure of the mind, where like this may not make sense to you all while I do this, but I've figured out these pathways. Could there be better ones? Sure. But there also could be worse ones. And this one, as shitty as it is, it works for me, and so here's how I do it. And I could probably explain why. Am I willing to change it? I've changed them 100 times. I'm always changing and adapting. But if you don't understand that someone else has a system, it is well thought out. If it is, then it's really easy to say, hey, this person's an insane person. Why would they do this? It's like, oh, well, here are the outcomes that I'm getting by doing it this way. And it's an ugly design, but it is my design. It's custom made. And sometimes custom that works. You're like, why did you put that on? I don't know. It just worked. I kept it.
Well, I mean, my own podcast called "Everything Is Personal." Everything I do is personalized. Even in my business, why I do genetic and epigenetic testing, and why we do these decision support platforms, because we're all individuals. When somebody's telling you you should do something, they're projecting what works for them onto you. But since we're all individuals, it may not work. Now, there's certain parts of that may work, that you can fit into what your own objectives are and how your mind works. But that's what makes us unique, because we're different. So getting information from different sources is wonderful, as long as you can incorporate it into your own framework. And that's really the key to success. And even success, like, what the hell does that mean? Success is a word that's different from different people. Some people want financial success. Well, I was coaching a lot of extremely financially successful people, if you're going to define it that way. Some of them even were successful with a B, billionaires. And they had the same challenges. They felt unfulfilled. They felt that there was something that's missing in their life. And they felt this imbalance. And I was like, well, of course, you're a billionaire. You're going to have, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's work and success. But maybe something else suffers over there. So how can we make sure that you feel fulfilled, even though there is, you can't get that balance back? So those kind of things.
Yeah. I know a number of billionaires too, and they will often look at me like I am wealthy, but not in terms of money. But they'll say, Pete, how do you, whatever? How are you so comfortable with this? How do you deal with that? And one thing I will notice about billionaires is they are genuinely curious and prepared to act, and so they're trying to, and this is just a norm. This is not a hard and fast, but, they've already ground down all the rough edges on a lot of life, but they're still like, why am I chasing this extra money? Why am I working myself to death when I've got great people? I've built a great business. Why? And getting them to try to figure out what their path is going to be, because you can't take my path and I can't take their path. Right. And so helping them, just look, here's some doors. These are harmless doors. Try them. If you don't like them, come right back out. Hey, and by the way, it's a door. If you're like, let me try that door again, you can. And just like, I don't know why we have to give permission to people so that they can have permission, but sometimes that's all it takes. It's like, it's fine. It's fine to start a podcast and fail. No big deal. You'll be the 1,700,250, but whatever, right? It doesn't matter. And if you go back to it and you start again, that's also okay. So we get so bound up, whether we're billionaires or, we're stuck on the streets. There's so many things that get in our way that have very little to do with what we're in control of.
I think that and there are studies out there to support this, but based on, even my personal discussions and communications with people who are financially successful, when they reach a certain pinnacle, there's a vast number that are neurodivergent in some way. Like Elon Musk is open about it, but there's a lot of them, and they learn how to harness that neurodivergence into that power, the differentiation, whether it's hyper focusing on things or whether it's multitasking of various things and being able to see the world differently. So when you were talking about, Pete, that, people are telling you that you should do this, you should do that. Well, the thing is that they're not coming from the way that your mind works and the way your mind puts the piece of the puzzle together. Some people take a puzzle and say, all right, I'm going to match the pieces that are on the outside. And some people are like, well, no, I'm going to take the most colorful ones and work on the inside. So it's very difficult for somebody to tell you what to do because we're different. And that's really what makes us unique. And I think a lot of people walk around with fears and anxiety. Like, I do a lot of genetic tests with people that have predispositions to stress reactivity, PTSD, slow rate of fear extinction. Okay, just because you have a predisposition for that, it doesn't mean that it's going to turn itself on. But they live a lifestyle that actually triggers those things. And they're like, well, I can't do this because I get anxiety. Well, the anxiety is there, and what you're doing triggered that anxiety. So maybe there's ways to go around that, sharp corner kind of thing. So you don't trigger that. And that that's sort of your GPS of life. You can get through life without knowing. It's wonderful. And people have, great lives doing that. But wouldn't it be nice if you knew that up front there's a pothole that you may not want to step into or drive into? So those are the things that I think it's extremely important for individuals to know as much about themselves as they can. And the success to me is being able to navigate through your own personal journey in the best way that you can possibly go and not try to replicate somebody else's journey. We all have mentors and we all have these things in life that we want to follow these paths. Maybe our path is not the same, and it's great to be able to learn from those experiences. But how many times did my parents told me, don't touch this, don't touch the hot stove. You're like, well, why not? Oh, that's why not. When I was a kid, I don't know, I was 2-3 years old, maybe 3, maybe 4, something like that. My mom used to wear these pins in her hair, had her hair like Amy Winehouse. So they're like, hey, stay away from the socket and all that stuff. I took one of those pins, I put it in the socket, I got electrocuted, burns. I never did that again. So I learned from that experience. I'm not touching that again.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad used to say, it doesn't take me long to look at a hot iron or whatever it was, and I was like, I was too young to get it. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, think about it. If I handed you a red hot horseshoe, what would you do? I'm like, I'd drop it because it's hot. And he's like, doesn't take you long to look at it, does it? And that sort of axiom based living, just slow down, chill out. My grandfather had a thing in the kitchen. The hurrier I go, the further behind I get. Right. And that just sort of stuck. And it's when your mind is sticky and those things get in there. The epigenetic thing is really interesting too. If you knew, because we don't know, we have to opt in and then we go on the ride. By the way, if you love heroin and it's going to destroy your life, be nice to know before you ever tried heroin, and it's like, oh, by the way, warning lights, you are going to love drugs, and you might live your life in a different way.
It's a great example because you're absolutely right. There's genetic predispositions to opioid dependence, for instance, and there's also genetic predispositions to impulsivity. If you combine the two together, It could be problematic. So we have doctors that actually use their genetic test to show their patients they may have an opioid predisposition, and then change their entire post-surgical protocol. So I have a doctor,
Yeah,
an orthopedic surgeon says, if you have this, I'm going to give you one opioid after surgery. Then I'm going to put you on like a CBD or something else. So I don't
right.
give you a prescription of 30 of these opioids because I don't want to trigger your epigenetic expression based on your genetic predisposition.
Yeah, yeah. Is that how one of the things we have learned in the big science is we have a whole lot less control over who we are. You know, that there is some nurture in our lives, but it's awfully tough to like slice out like this is the specific thing because there's a thousand things. But on that genetic side, boy, you know, like I don't know. Are you familiar with what is her last name? Judith. She's passed on, but she's the nature versus nurture lady, and she came around and said, "You know what? Nature is over 50% of who you are. You know, like there is no middle kid thing, there is no older kid thing. It's just the genetic makeup of these kids." And so, yeah, you're going to have different outcomes, and that's why your kids are all different. That kind of blew the lid off of behavioral psychology. Judith Rich, that's her name, Judith Rich,
Yes.
and it forced us to deal with this thing. And now we have the science to see it, you know, like, oh, this is going to be my hyper diligent kid because he has these markers, and as long as we can work towards those ends, this kid's going to be a doctor or whatever it is. And I'm making an example, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
examples, but
Well, I kind of disagree
that's fine.
slightly, and I'll tell you
Yeah,
where. So maybe it'll be helpful if I can share with people, about DNA a little bit and what we're seeing. Like, we have 16 citations mentions on PubMed. We've done numerous clinical trials. We're published. We have 11 different patents. So this isn't something that I'm just getting from thin air.
sure.
We're scientifically validated, but uh, you get your DNA half from your father, half from your mother, and what happens is that think of it as a bunch of circuit breakers, on-off switches. So when we're born, we have maybe 20 to 30%, depending on the individual, that are turned on. So things like our hair color, eye color, skin color, those kind of things are turned on. The rest of them, a lot of them, are turned on based on lifestyle. So, what
Mm,
affects your epigenetic expression? Well, the first thing that affects your epigenetic expression is what you put in your body, nutrients. So, food is huge. It's a major, major thing to turn those, switches on. So, the food, the nutrients that you consume. The second thing is exposure to things that can affect your epigenetic or your epigenome, like heavy metals, pesticides.
sure.
Obviously, if you're, I'm old, so I'll mention Chernobyl. If you're around Chernobyl,
Right.
you may have some challenges with your epigenome based on the nuclear waste fallout. The
Right.
third is, and what we forget about, and I think it's extremely important, is our own neurochemistry. Our own expression of neurochemicals can actually turn on epigenetic expression. And we talked about stress. Well,
Yeah.
cortisol. If you are excreting cortisol, and cortisol is good. It allows us to wake up in the morning. It allows us to, get in our circadian rhythm. But if you're excreting cortisol in wrong times and you're keeping it in your bloodstream longer, that can create all kinds of challenges. So epigenetic expression of stress reactivity, that PTSD, also gut health issues. If you have predisposition to IBD and gut health issues, their autoimmune is out of balance. Your immune system can be over or underreacting to something, which can
Mm.
turn on those switches as well. So these are the things like nature nurture kind of thing. It sort of all goes together. One works with the other, but if you know, you can take better control over your epigenetic expression.
What does knowing mean in this case?
Well, it means that I know what my genetic predispositions are. So the way that we do it in my company, in EndoDNA, we do a genetic test. So you do a buccal swab. So it's like a big Q-tip. You swab we don't have to do like the COVID test where you kind of poke your brain. You do the side of your mouth, inside the cheek. You swab. You put it back in a little vial, which is a reagent which suspends the DNA, and you ship it to the lab. The lab will genetically sequence that, provide us the information. We will then provide you a report. So the report, you're looking at your genetic predispositions to a number of different conditions. So it can be symptomatic conditions, like I mentioned already. Are you predisposed to PTSD? Are you predisposed to stress reactivity? What about things like bruxism, grinding your teeth or clenching your teeth? What about things like osteoporosis? What about conditions like tremors? Are you predisposed to things like early onset dementia and Alzheimer's? Okay, well, what do I do about that? Now you know. Now you know. So all these things are your genetic predispositions. So this is your life's GPS. This shows you where your potholes are on your road. Now, I can still drive. I live in LA. I can still drive from LA to Philly, where I'm from, without a GPS. Maybe I can get my old maps out and anything else. I'll get there eventually, but I'm going to get lost. I'm going to hit potholes. I'm going to hit traffic jams. So with a GPS, I can be a lot more efficient getting there. And that's your genetic test. Now, what you do with that is your action plan, your treatment. So what are some of the examples? Well, what can I do with that? You already mentioned one is opioid dependence. So if I know that I'm predisposed to opioid dependence, maybe I shouldn't consume opioids. What about this? If I have a predisposition to depressive states, so I have a predisposition to depression. Okay. Well, I can also have a predisposition to treatment-resistant depression, which means that I'll tell the story. I had a friend of mine, speaking of success, a very successful financially business person who ended up doing a venture, and the venture didn't go well. So all of a sudden, his depressive marker got triggered, and he started feeling very depressed. He went to a psychopharmacologist, got an antidepressant, and tells me the story. He doesn't live in LA, but he was in LA, and he was driving around the canyons and with his wife and his son. And he said he had an overwhelming desire to drive off the cliff. He goes, it was so real and so overwhelming that he had to pull over. And he pulled over, got out of the car. His wife came out, "Are you okay?" He goes, "I'm not okay, and I should not be driving." So luckily he caught that. So when he went back, first of all, he has treatment-resistant depression. So the pharmaceutical, the antidepressant that was on, wouldn't have worked for him, but he got the side effect for that. And the side effect was suicidal thoughts. So it wouldn't have been efficacious. So I was speaking at a conference, and I asked these doctors and psychopharmacologists, so how many of you do a pharmacogenomics test to see how drugs will affect individual bodies before you prescribe? Not one hand went up. So that's the challenge in our healthcare system too.
Yeah, and so I've got a buddy, Dr. Tracy Gappin, who was I guess you would call him just a urologist, and he's like, I just am sick of this. These guys come so messed up. I think we can get in front of this. And so he became an expert in epigenetics, and he does this sort of thing where he's like, hey fellas, you actually can have sex in your middle age. You actually can do all these things if we look at you and try to tune up what you're doing, and then detune the stuff that you're not supposed to happen. And like a lot of this can be done through therapy, but also you have the kind of food you consume, like you said. Apparently me, I get to be powered on donuts because donuts make me smart. That's a little bit of a joke. That's not true. I want it to be true. But like I have PTSD, and what I've come to realize, and this is just how I work with this craziness that's in my head, is my body, its first and second and third response is cortisol, because I've been in a lot of combat. And so I have to go, this is not the real world. I'm fine. I'm not in danger. My body is firing like I'm in danger because my cortisol pathways are this big now. Again, this is how I characterize it. And so I've built a system that for me today reliably allows me to, regain control. Even if I've slid down the mountain a little bit and I'm going to be a little bit depressed for a couple of days, or if I run a mild depression for weeks, that's all fine because I know it's there and I've got a pretty good handle on where it's at. And then I just slowly pull out of that. But before I knew that, there was a lot of chaos in my life. I was doing a lot of crazy shit, and I did not have control over my emotions in a healthy way. And I still remain slightly compelled to kill myself. Right? I'm not going to do it today, but now that I have these tools and I can see it, I can get my hands on the side of the well and slow myself down to where I can manage it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's really important for people to understand. Like the first test that we did in our company, let me go back. When I was a kid, I was the kid that would sit in class and the teacher would call me and I'd be sort of daydreaming. I wasn't paying attention. And the reason why I wasn't paying attention is I wasn't interested. I wasn't stimulated. I'm not talking about, I'm sure every kid goes through school and I'm like, this is boring. But
Yeah.
this was an ongoing thing. So I got diagnosed when I was 14 with ADD and no H, but now it's all ADHD. And then I was put on prescription medication. And the prescription medication, I can't say it didn't work per se, if you're
Right.
talking about focus, but it eliminated my sense of feeling of any source. There was no, I'm happy, I'm sad. There was none of that. I was just kind of coasting through life. And I discovered cannabis for myself. I'm not advocating this for kids. I'm not advocating anything, but I'm saying this is my experience. So I was hanging out with older kids. They asked me if I want to smoke a cigarette. I was like, cool. I'll smoke a cigarette with the older kids. Never questioned why they had one. And they ended up putting cannabis in there. When it got to me, they were laughing at me when I took a drag. But I went back to class and the windows that are open in my head sort of narrowed and I could focus and became my go-to medicine. So, going through life, the first test that we did in my company was an endocannabinoid system test. And I say this for a reason because we work with a lot of veterans, a lot of athletes, a lot of people have PTSD genetically predisposed, and even just expressing PTSD without genetics. But one of the things that I see as a commonality, there's also a discrepancy in their endocannabinoid system. So if you are, I'll give you another example. If I'm walking down the street and a car comes out of nowhere, almost hits me. So I'm going to have this fight or flight experience. I'm going to have like some dopamine, some adrenaline, some norepinephrine, some cortisol. All that's going to be released into my bloodstream. Now, when my brain realizes there's no lion chasing me in the jungle, there's going to be a couple of things that happen. There's a reuptake of those neurochemicals, and your brain releases other neurochemicals to get you back to balance and homeostasis. And this is part of your endocannabinoid system. So the two endogenous, that means we create them ourselves, endogenous neurochemicals that it releases. The first one's called anandamide. The word ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. And the second one is 2-AG. But genetically, we have predispositions to some neurochemicals or some enzymes that break down anandamide. So you're not producing enough. That cortisol stays longer in your bloodstream. And when it stays longer in your bloodstream, it can actually trigger an overactive immune response, so lower your pH level, make you more acidic, your immune system. Now you're feeling inflammation, usually in your joints, knees, hips, neck, back, etc. And then, as I said, moves into your gut health. So if you're going to subsidize, like me that I talked about cannabis, if you're going to subsidize, THC is a very narrow therapeutic window. You have to take a little bit and the right terpene profile and everything else. But what happens is, if you take too much, now it's a vasodilator. So my heart will beat faster. I'll feel some anxiety. The next thing that it can do is trigger PTSD. So meaning that, oh shit, this happened to me a month ago or something like that. Now I'm revolving this in my brain the whole time of that story that happened to me a month ago. The other genetic predisposition is something called fear extinction. And what happens with that is, if you have a traumatic event in your life, you've had many traumatic events. I was hit by a car, not a big thing, when I was 9 years old or 10 years old on my bicycle. So your brain likes to conserve energy. So it takes the trauma that you had, stores it in your subconscious until it doesn't, under great duress, it can pull out that memory. Not only am I dealing with the stress of right now, but I'm dealing with that memory of what happened to me when I was 9, 10 years old. So now I'm having a very stressful experience, which can domino affect a whole bunch of other things. So these are the things that we need to be aware of and take action around that. And the system itself, if you're out of balance, all these neurochemicals are firing off balance. So you have to get to the point where you're in what's called homeostasis. And that means that you understand where your own neurochemistry is. So you can, like a seesaw, if you have too many things on this side, you put some more on this side and you get back to your balance.
Yeah, boy, you said a lot of good things there, and there was a lot of that maintenance things, and a lot of these, they just make sense. But it's the day-to-day life stuff that gets in the way of us taking care of ourselves. I mean, it's easy to, like we talk about things in terms of being in balance, but the reality is you're always on a bosa ball, and you're always like, oh. And so maybe when you're out of balance, your foot's on the floor, but you're not getting that thing. So trying to find balance isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be hard, and if you put bad fuel into your body, and look, I'm as guilty, probably more guilty than most, if you're drinking a bottle of wine every other night, if only that much, these things tend to have a deleterious effect on your overall homeostasis across a variety of systems, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, alcohol is one of the worst things. Look, I drink, I like a bourbon once in a while too,
Sure.
but it's not something that I do. I only do it occasionally. But you have to be aware of your body is here. Like I tell people all the time, like when I'm coaching, for instance, when I'm having this discussion with people, and I say, all right, you have a lot of goals, right? Yeah, let's go through your goals. Okay. Now think about that you're sick. What's your goal? Well, it's to get better. All the other goals go away. So if you're not taking care of yourself, there's nothing else that's more important than that. This is your vessel that you've been given, and you want to take care of that. And we were talking about, genetic predispositions to like Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, if I tell you that that's caused by amyloid plaque, I don't know if that means anything to you, but people should know that amyloid plaque is the same exact plaque that's in your heart arteries. Right. So if you're eating food that creates heart arteries, my dad had to get a stent put in his artery because of his lifestyle and all that other stuff. Now he doesn't eat like that anymore. But at some point, that same amyloid plaque is in your brain. And if you have a predisposition to Alzheimer's, there's a genetic predisposition called APOE, APOE4, etc., that give you like you're 50% more likely to develop Alzheimer's than the general population. And if you're also eating food that will, create that arteries, galactin-3, etc., the amyloid plaque, you can then be more likely to experience Alzheimer's. So these are the things, knowing as much about yourself and taking action to be able to prevent some of that. I think that's the key to being successful, being happy, having that sense of purpose. We all had the flu or COVID, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
It didn't feel well. It sucked. And you weren't able to, plan the rest of the things that you wanted to do on your list. You just wanted to get better. And I just want people to remember that health is the ultimate wealth, as cheesy and whatever as it sounds, but that is. And if you're investing in that, that's what you should invest in first before you invest in your stock portfolio or anything else.
Ooh, how much does that cost then? All right, if I'm not going to put money in my stock portfolio, what am I going to be putting into understanding how my body works epigenetically?
It's a good point. Our test is only a couple $100, but it's not even investing in testing. It's investing in buying the right foods. It's just making the right decisions, right? So instead of going through and getting my fast food, maybe I'll just go and make a salad and have real food. Instead of food that's not real. It's shopping. It's being smart when you're going grocery shopping. If something is in the aisle and it has an expiration date that's 12 months, well, you got to think about it. What type of preservatives are in this. Like I bought
Best.
fruit, right? I went to the farmer's market. I bought fruit. It's organic.
Yeah.
I had it sitting in my bowl. 3 days, it's already turning color. I have fruit I put in the fridge I bought that wasn't organic. And it's sitting there like an apple is sitting there. It looks like it did in a month. It looks like the same exact
Yeah.
way that I bought it. I'm like, you should question that.
Yeah.
What does that? What does that really mean? What's in that that I'm putting in my body?
Yeah. It's crazy. Look, I'm guilty of all these things. So when I say this, these are just little things that I've learned. But when you read and understand what the ingredients are of, for example, Girl Scout cookies, I'm never eating one again. I mean, there's heavy metals. There are so many things in life, and we look back in our history, like that person was crazy. Also, access to mercury. We put mercury on everything, arsenic on everything, and then lead on everything. And so we just consumed this stuff, and we still to this day have all kinds of things that have these compounds in them, or in some cases, elements like mercury. And oh my God, it's like, so no wonder people go bananas because their body was able to handle this much and they got this much above it.
Yeah, I think when you look, we're going to discover new things, and some people are saying do this, and then in 20 years they're going to say, "Oh shit, I can't believe I did that." People used to smoke, and it was
Yeah.
healthy. I remember flying on a
Yeah.
plane, and people were smoking on the airplane.
On the plane.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're like, "Oh, that's a smoking section." Well, we're in a
Yeah.
tube. Where's the
It's a
smoking
tube.
section?
Yeah.
It's all the same kind of thing. So I think it's using common sense too. I know common
Yeah.
sense is not common these days, but if you're going to put certain types of things in your body, your body's going to tell you, hey, maybe this isn't the thing that I should be consuming right now.
Yeah. And this is not an epigenetic point, but I just quit turning the TV on as a default in my life. Just quit turning it on, so I can watch TV whenever I want. And I probably still watch a lot of TV, and I probably still watch a lot of my phone too much, but I have no desire. There's no physical pull for me anymore, which I didn't realize I had, to turn the TV on. There was a time when I would get into a hotel room, turn on ESPN, and then fall asleep at the TV. Like, God, sleep's too valuable to me now. I know how valuable sleep is. Another thing, like, let's avoid mercury and let's make sure we invest in my sleeping wellness, because that is tough to maintain as you get older, and it is one of, if not the biggest things for you.
Well, P, you brought up a great point because, sleep. Think about, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, people used to be heroes for saying, man, I only sleep 4 hours a night. I don't need that sleep. I think
Right.
I think Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say, you have 8 hour. He goes, you have 24 hours in a day. You can only do so much. He goes, well, you can actually sleep faster, kind of thing, in his accent, which I'm not going to do. But I just think sleep is extremely important, but also it's the quality of sleep that is most important. Some
Yeah.
people can sleep for 6 hours a night. They don't need 8 hours a night because they're
Right.
getting their deep, restful sleep. And when you're getting your deep, restful sleep, there's a whole bunch of things that happen. Like I'm in my 50s at this point. So, and uh, a lot of my friends, almost everybody, is on hormone replacement. I'm not, and or not yet, and I'm not opposed to it. It just I'm good. I don't need it yet. But what happens is when you're getting good restful sleep, you're actually creating testosterone while you sleep. So the better quality sleep you get, the better neurochemicals that your body is producing over your sleep cycle. So if you're not getting your good quality sleep, you're actually not creating your own pharmacy that's inside your body to be able to produce all the things you need in order to live a good, happy life. So
Right.
it's really important to be able to measure, waking up. I think Dr. Andrew Huberman talked about this in his podcast. He said one of the things that he discovered was when you wake up in the morning, if within the first hour you can get some sunlight, what will happen is the cortisol that you excreted when you wake up, it actually lasts longer. And when it lasts longer, what else happens is it actually promotes your it helps to balance your sleep cycle. So you're actually producing enough melatonin at the end of the night to get you to sleep better. So you get your circadian rhythm aligned. And that means you're waking up basically at the same time, you're going to sleep at the same time, and now you're back in balance. So, the falling asleep with your TV on, having that blue light, you can fall asleep, but it interrupts the quality of sleep. And if you measure that with a wearable device, you may actually see that.
Yeah, boy. Yeah. I mean, and just having the room the right temperature and all those other things, if you were struggling to sleep, just start layering in these fixes and determine where the problem is. But yeah, a whole lot less TV, it's helpful. I was told that a walk, not right before you go to bed, but like, an hour or two before is part of your prep. You go for a walk, you get rid of any extra blood sugar that's there in the system, and you can then wind down and go to sleep and get pretty. Now I'm lucky. I sleep pretty well, and I'm a napper, and so I'll get 8 hours every day. They're about like 7 to 8. But if I wake up at 6 hours, I'm going to be fine because later on I'm going to get my nap, and it's like a turbo booster for me. That may not be the recommended way to do it, but it sure as shit works for me.
You got to listen to your body, whatever works for you. I don't know if there's a recommended thing anyway, because we're all individuals. And also, your doctor, unfortunately, doctors are also, stuck in this sick care system that uses insurance, and, they go through their cycle of what they know. Unless you have a functional medical professional, it's really difficult. You want to have a partnership and collaboration with your doctor. Like, I'll tell one more story. Like, I really don't like to get my blood taken. I almost pass out every single time, and I'm all tattooed, so it's nothing to do with needles. It has to do with something that blood leave my body kind of thing. So I went to get my physical a couple of years ago, and I told them, like, I don't do well with blood. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right. So they're taking my blood. I'm having a conversation. I think it's fine. Then I hear, hey, come in here. Come in here. Somebody's yelling. So I guess I was started to pass out. I started drift off my chair, and they gave me juice and all that stuff. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. So they said, well, we have to continue. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, we took the needle out because we thought you were passed out. All right, fine. I got through it. They got the blood test. I went back to the doctor to go over my results. And she goes, everything is great except your blood glucose level is a little high. I'm like, I don't eat sugar. That doesn't make any sense. She's like, well, I'm not sure. She goes, if you're really concerned about it, I will recommend a glucose monitor. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'll wear that. But she said the cortisol that you expressed from being stressed actually elevated your blood glucose level, most likely. But if you're concerned about where your glucose monitor, we'll check. So I did that, and my blood glucose monitor was fine. But if I went to a regular doctor, not a functional medical professional, most of the time they would say, oh, we'll give you something. You're pre-diabetic. We'll give you something, medication to reduce your blood glucose level, which I didn't need.
Now you got the bipolar, like bipolar. I mean, they're doing their best. Bodies are complicated things, but you're right. It is. I'm going to make a very broad statement here, but it is hard for doctors to keep up with the pace of learning that we have going on, and to master it and understand the body of work. It just moves so fast, that it's tough. And a lot of it disagrees because we just don't know. Then you stack a system, and it's no surprise that getting up and getting some sunshine earlier in the day makes you sleep better 12 hours later. Like, that's just no surprise that these things all work together. The one thing I struggle with, I'm supposed to do all these things: get up, gratitude journal, do my stretch, get my workout in, have my coffee at a certain time, all these things. Man, by the time I do all these things to keep my life in balance, I'm out of time, and it's so much, man.
I'm not in favor of all that. And I'm in favor of doing what works best for you. So I same exact thing, gratitude journal. I need to meditate. I did a Joe Dispenza retreat. I need to do that. I do what's best for me. Like, transcendental meditation works for me. I don't do it twice a day, but I'll tell you what really works for me. I love music. And for me, there's nothing more meditative than, at the end of the day, like, I take off my headphones. I'm on my computer. I'm sitting all day except for lunch. When I'm done and I take on my computer, there's nothing better than being in my room, grabbing a vinyl record, putting that on, sitting, listening, looking at the liner notes, looking at that. That's my meditation. Or going on a hike. Going on a hike now. We live in LA. The weather isn't great right now, but usually all year round, I can go on a hike, be one with nature, listen to music or whatever it is, or listen to nature. So you have to find what works for you. All these different things, you're absolutely right. If you have to force it and force yourself to do it, it's no fun. So you want to do things that stick. And when they stick, they become habitual. And the reason why they become habitual is because you're enjoying the process, or you anchor yourself with a reward. So I don't like to go to the gym. I don't enjoy the gym. Some people are like, man, I love the gym. I don't like it. I go 5 days a week. And why do I go? Not just because I like the reward that I get, but I create a reward system for myself. I love the sauna. My gym has a great sauna. So I know I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go through the workout, but at the end, I'm going to reward myself with that sauna. And that's my anchor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, man. Like, and just building that system so that whatever it is, you sit down at the couch to do some reading and your phone is out of arm's reach. So the better part of you can just be like, I'm here to read, and remind exactly. I'm telling you what I have to do. Like my phone is plugged in the bedroom charging, and now I'm going to read. And then I read, and I retrain myself to be able to sit down and just like, I get books all the time for my show, right? So I'm always having to like read these books. It's wonderful. I have to remind myself, this is wonderful. I get to read for work, and I don't have to worry about fucking with my phone and distracting myself with, cat videos or whatever it is. And it has taken some doing, and it takes practice to work on that, because that habit will slide away and go right into that dopamine filled phone that I have.
But you also figure out what works best for you. Like I figured out that reading a book, like sitting down reading, is not stimulating for me. It makes me doze off or my mind escapes. But I listened on Audible. I listened to 93 books last year. So that is my connection. Now I can listen, no problem, and really pay attention. And when I talk to other people, like, oh man, I can't listen to a book. My mind is drifting elsewhere. I can't pay attention. I need to read the words. So you just have to know yourself and like lean into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right about that. Whatever that thing is. And I love that for you. It's music. Are you in a beanbag chair? Because I want you to be in a beanbag when you're doing the liner note, headphones on, because that's just kind of.
I'm no longer in a beanbag, and I don't have my lava lamp, and I don't have all that stuff. That's way back in the day.
Yeah.
No, I'm sitting on my couch. We have some things. I used to work at Tower Records way back in the day, and I used to be a music. I know we had that in common. I remember I was talking. So but in Philly, where I'm originally from. Actually, I was born in Lithuania, so I immigrated to the U.S. when I was about 6. But I grew up in Philly, and I worked in Tower Records. And to me, like I made $7 an hour, but that was the greatest job that I ever had, because I was in flow. I'm surrounded by music, and I'm learning. So I grabbed this, CD. I'm like, I don't know what this is, and everybody there loves music. So you can talk about, hey, I want to learn more about island music and reggae. There's a guy there that's their specialty, and I'm learning about that.
Yes.
Or anything with jazz. Like, oh shit, there's a jazz guy. He's going to tell me Archie Shepp and who Albert Eiler is. I'm going to listen to Albert Eiler in The Village and Eric Dolphy. I'm like, what? That is the kind of thing. So as long as I'm getting dopamine, it's in it. But music is that thing for me.
Yeah, man, it's you're right about Tower. I've had a lot of incredible jobs, but it is the one I think back with the most fondly. It was, I don't know if it must be true for you. I would get off of work and I'm like, I'm just going to stay and just hang out. I'd come in on my day off, even though I didn't work really close enough for that, but I just had so much fun working there. And you're right. Like there is the guy that's into rap, and he was ahead of everybody. And then there's the guy that's into, whatever. And then you find out you like their world. Oh my God, it's just an amazing thing. And not just music, but books and the pop culture around the music and videos. And it was just like, what do you want? Oh, by the way, I'm going to get my concert tickets too. It was a really, it was a magical place. And you really could spend more time with the music, you know. And look, people are going to do what people do, but I recall we had a conversation, and it was when Tracy Chapman, when she broke out with, you know, Fast Car,
Yeah.
and we were discussing it, and we got a chance to really get into it. And I realized that song is way deeper, probably than even Tracy realized. But she changes whose point of view she's singing from, and you can put a lot of yourself in that song. But then you pull back out and you read it, and you're like, oh man, you know, I really don't know what happened in this song. It's just more about life, as opposed to, a lot of people want to say it's not a love song. It's absolutely a love song. And they think it's because you know, the boyfriend, the love interest is an alcoholic. You don't actually know that. You know, you bring all of yourself into this song. And when someone throws that on you and it sticks, you're like, oh man, I've got to rethink everything, because I brought me to this song, and that isn't necessarily what this song is about. It's so good. I love Tower.
Yeah. So, and you know, some artists, they have their own perspective when they wrote a song, but
Right.
they write it in a way, and they don't tell you what it is to allow you to interpret it for yourself, whatever that means to you. But yeah, you know, being surrounded by music all the time was just an incredible thing. People are passionate. I was actually the rap buyer for the store, and before I got a job, you know, I was homeless basically at that time, but I would go to Tower Records just so I can browse, and I would spend hours in there. And there was I met the people who worked there, and then my buddy there, he's like, "Hey, we're hiring if you want a job."
Oh,
So I got a job working as a cashier first at Tower Records, and the you know, it was just an
what a
incredible
lucky
experience.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people don't want to leave those jobs, and maybe they go off to school or something, or maybe their band finally hits. But people didn't leave those jobs; people stayed, and they collected. I don't know if on purpose, but just a wide swath of society. I mean, forget just ethnicity, just, you know, they had people from I don't know. It's at least where I worked. It was incredible, the collection of people.
Same here. The people, everybody was so different. You know, different ethnicities, different economic backgrounds, uh, everything. But the uniting thread was that everybody loved music, and the
Yeah.
arguments, and most of the arguments we had, what was going on in the CD player to play in the store. And the people who
Mhm.
were working in the cash register, they get to pick the music, and I don't like
Yeah.
this, I like that. But yeah, it was a great experience, and it actually led to, you know, my passion for music. I had it since I was a kid. Speaking of
Mhm.
sleep, so growing up in Philly, my mom didn't like the air conditioning, so she said she was allergic. So at night, in I would try to sleep with a fan in the window. It was blowing hot, steamy air, and I would have my little tape deck recorder, and I would record things off the radio, and I started making mixed tapes, like, you know, cutting the cassette tape and all that stuff.
Sure.
I know kids are like, I don't know what you're talking about, but we used to do that back in the day. So that created this whole passion of music, and it just carried into, you know, today even.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a time when you could explore. And also, if someone came up to you and they'd say, "Hey," and maybe they even know your name now, right? Because you become a personal. They appreciate your taste. What should I be listening to? I was like, I worked in the video store, but I was like, "Hey, what should I be watching?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"You got to watch this. You know, you may not like it, but you got to watch it. You know, you got to watch this." You know,
yeah.
and not just like the new releases. That's not what they were wanting. They were like, you know, you always send me on a different ride, and I'm like, here's the ride today. You know, and the same thing with the music. You know, go buy this record and listen to and watch this thing or whatever it is. Right?
Well, you're a
It's
tastemaker. You become a
yeah.
tastemaker, and people trust you on that. And that's why, like, I have a very, you know, a fairly large vinyl collection. So I think right after COVID, at some point, or maybe even during, I would grab a vinyl and I would put it on, and I would make myself lunch. So I started recording myself and doing the record of the day and just putting it on social media. And people are like, "Oh man, what's your record of the day?" People call me all the time. And so
Mhm.
I've hundreds and hundreds of records that I do this record of the day. So every day on social media, I put that on and I share with
Yeah.
people a record. So you become that tastemaker because you like certain things, and there you find other people that align with your tastes, and they're
Yep.
asking you for that feedback and that advice, as you just said, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really neat thing. I want everybody to take a look real quick. Speaking of taste makers, let's ingest your taste here. There is Len's website. Len May Coaching. There's all kinds of resources in there. That's the place you guys got to go to get more about Len. You can listen to his show and everything else. But, I don't want to forget to plug your stuff before we get out of here. And it's been such a treat talking to you. I'm like, oh, we're out an hour. I gotta do some work here. But man, I appreciate it that you are like, we have very, very similar things, and yet we've done totally different lives. But that tower thing, man, it's, you and I both know it's like a club. And you cannot hate somebody who's from Tower, even if 20 years ago you did, or gosh, almost 40 years ago now for me. But it's an amazing experience to go through life and have that little thing. One of the guys that worked at our store is one of the most famous, successful music video producers of all time. Like, everybody has seen his work, and he's just a dude that worked at Tower. He's like, but you know what I learned? I mean, apart from all the stuff we just talked about in stories, like, I got to go work in Sacramento at the distribution center, and I learned how to buy and sell music. I learned about distribution, and that launched him to the next thing. And the thing about Towers, they were glad to send you on your way when you're done. They'd find a new kid and everything else, but he's as successful as you could ever hope to be, and he attributes it directly to Tower. It's amazing.
Well,
so thanks for
Axl Rose and Slash worked at Tower Records. So did Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. And if you go down the list, I'm sure there's a ton of famous musicians or people in the industry who work there. So
yeah. Elton John didn't work there, but he was in there all the time. He spent a lot of money.
For sure.
And that was true. Like, all of the folks who were unattainable to everybody else were attainable to us. Where I worked, there were some Sacramento Kings players, and so they would come in and they'd rent movies, and they just wanted to chill out. And we would have these funny conversations, like, how about me and my roommate against you and your roommate? And they were both 2 NBA players. I know, like, he'd probably beat us, quite honestly. We're not the guys that score, and you just became, again, the tastemaker aspect and the coolness factor was cool. And then anytime the local fighters, I'm talking world champions, after they fought, they come in with the sunglasses on, buy a stack of CDs back when that was a big deal. And you'd be like, holy shit, so-and-so came in today, and they were just the best people. And it really kind of compressed society. So, like, here comes Elton John. Of course, he wants to buy a bunch of music. He's interested in what they have to say. Oh, he always talks to Pete, whatever. All of that was available to us, and just remarkable. What? Anything else you want to cover before we wrap this thing up?
Not really. I mean, Len May Coaching is my coaching site. EndoDNA is my company that I'm the CEO and co-founder of. That's a genetic testing company. I have a book if anybody's into, finding out a little bit about my story and also cannabis. So I have a book called Making Cannabis Personal. You can get that on Amazon or wherever you get books. And my record of the day, if you want to follow me on social, Len May DNA on Instagram. Len May Music also, I have one of those, and that's my record of the day. Check it out. Give me some feedback. That's about it, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the link up here for Len's book. Let me just get a second here to grab this title, and then you guys will have that, and you can get it. And you know what I always say about books? Buy 2, buddy read. Books make great gifts. 'Tis the season, and all that kind of thing. And I truly mean that when I say this. I know I'm kind of saying it like a robot because I'm trying to do all this other work, but there's the link for that. And this is the things when you buy these books, Len, in this case, whoever it is, they've poured their heart into the book. Don't you want to have that conversation with somebody to like read it and be like, oh my God. And here's the thing is if you read it and you love it, let me know. I will convince Len to come back on so he can blow your mind again. How about that? So buy these books, everybody. They are wonderful, wonderful journeys that you can go on. Len, anything? I'll give you the last word, or I'll just wrap this thing
up. No, man, I appreciate Pete. I think it's wonderful to have a platform to be able to talk and have a conversation with somebody. We have a lot in common, obviously, Tower Records and music, but giving me a platform to talk about, things I'm passionate about. I just think everybody, like, we talk about passion, and just to end with this, I don't think passion is something that you have to have all the time about one specific thing. You can be passionate about, the endocannabinoid system, and tomorrow you can be passionate about music. You can be passionate about something else. So just lean into that and go all in and try everything. Be that Leonardo da Vinci kind of character who it took him 10 years to paint the Mona Lisa, but man, when you look at it now, it's worth that 10 years. So, pace yourself, and things, will, what you're going through today, you may not be going through tomorrow. So, all things all this shit will pass as well. So just one day at a time kind of thing.
Stand by. I'll say goodbye to you in a second. Everybody else, I'll see you all tomorrow.